Hamilton furious with his Ferrari engine after the Barcelona Grand Prix. Don't miss the full story. The brutal tension between Hamilton and the Ferrari team exploded right after the race. Subscribe just to stay tuned for the Formula One news no one else explains to you. The sweltering heat over Circuit de Barcelona-Catalunya hung like a suffocating curtain over the 2025 Spanish Grand Prix, shimmering off the tarmac while the grandstands erupted in a red sea of fervor and devotion. Thousands of Ferrari loyalists, draped in crimson banners, screamed themselves hoarse, dreaming of triumph from their knight in scarlet armor, Lewis Hamilton. But beneath that roaring tide of anticipation, destiny had drafted a far darker script. What transpired over the course of that blistering afternoon wasn't a race. It was a live broadcast of chaos, frustration, and psychological combustion. The very public unraveling of a Formula One legend trapped in a crimson machine betraying him in real time. Hamilton, now deep into his sophomore campaign with the prancing horse, was meant to be leading a renaissance, the phoenix igniting Ferrari's long-awaited resurgence. But instead of glory, he found himself grappling with a mechanical monstrosity. On lap 23, a voice pierced the radio waves, sharp, precise, and brimming with unfiltered disbelief. It was the voice of a champion losing control of his destiny. Something's off. The clutch's behaving weird. I'm hemorrhaging power mid-corner. There's a huge delay when I hit the throttle. Feels like the engine's operating at half capacity. His race engineer attempted to maintain composure, responding with a barrage of calibration suggestions. Switch to Strat Mode 6, then to 8, then to 9. None of them brought relief. The frustration in Hamilton's tone intensified with every syllable. Tried them all. Nothing's changed. No acceleration. The exit's dead. Either the clutch is slipping or completely toast. Also, I don't think the energy unit's delivering at all. As the laps ticked by, the numbers began to paint a grim portrait. By lap 25, the diagnostic readouts were flashing in red across the pit wall monitors. The MGUK had been inconsistently delivering power since lap 20. The ERS deployment was malfunctioning, energy harvesting was nearly non-existent, and the battery regeneration was completely stagnant. To make matters worse, gear synchronization was becoming erratic, shifts were delayed, torque delivery unpredictable. And then, as he rocketed out of turn 5, the tipping point arrived. Hamilton's voice roared through the comms like a detonation. Subscribe just to stay tuned for the Formula One news no one else explains to you. This is a joke. What the hell am I even driving? It's undrivable. The clutch is destroyed, the MGUK is offline, the battery isn't cycling, and now it's not even shifting properly. What is this? Inside the Ferrari garage, the atmosphere transformed from mild concern to outright panic. Engineers huddled over screens, fingers darting across keyboards, shouting instructions, pulling data overlays, desperately trying to pinpoint a solution as their marquee driver publicly unraveled in front of millions. Team principal Frederic Vasseur stood like a statue, eyes wide, mouth slightly open, absorbing the disaster with a hollow stare of a man witnessing a slow-motion implosion of everything he had promised the board, and Lewis would be fixed this season. Meanwhile, in the sister car, Charles Leclerc, running a composed third with no major issues, had caught wind of the disaster through the internal channel. What he said next would turn a technical crisis into a deeply personal conflict. Is Lewis dealing with problems again? I told you we shouldn't have messed with the cooling setup this weekend, he muttered casually over his own radio. Those words, seemingly tossed out in passing, were a spark dropped into a pit of gasoline. A backhanded remark in any other context, but amid tension, ego, and a growing fissure between teammates, it was incendiary. Post-race, when Hamilton got wind of it, the atmosphere within the team curdled further. What was once private disappointment became personal disillusionment. Hamilton, who had been told repeatedly that he was the centerpiece of a rebuild, realized he was playing a different game, one with quiet backroom politics, whispered doubts, and teammates already choosing sides. No podium for Lewis. No celebratory radio messages. No media appearances. Just a quiet, surgical withdrawal from the paddock. He walked past the Ferrari hospitality unit with the kind of glare that didn't scream, it seethed. Reporters reached for quotes, he ignored them. Vasseur extended a hand, Hamilton barely acknowledged it. His demeanor wasn't anger, it was corrosion. Erosion of belief. Dismantling of trust. The kind of emotional retreat that only comes when someone who's seen it all realizes he's been sold another beautiful illusion. beautifully wrapped but fundamentally flawed. Subscribe just to stay tuned for the Formula One news no one else explains to you. He didn't need to voice his betrayal. It was written in the clenched jaw, the stone-like posture, the silence louder than any outburst. Those who knew him at Mercedes had seen this version of Lewis before, not enraged, but resolved. A predator drawing breath before changing direction. Whispers began to surge through the paddock by Monday morning. Rumors of late-night calls. Exit clause evaluations. Mentions of Aston Martin. Even Red Bull's name danced in the shadows. Speculation became wildfire, not because Lewis said anything, but because he didn't have to. When a driver of his caliber goes quiet, the paddock listens. Inside Ferrari, the fallout was immediate. Engineers blamed calibration teams. Strategists blamed simulations. The media pointed fingers at management. The relationship between Hamilton and Leclerc? Frostbite. Communication between the two garages was reduced to essentials only. Vasseur tried to mediate, but the fracture lines were no longer superficial. They had cut deep, splitting the team's soul in two. The older Titan and the Monegasque Prince were no longer comrades in arms. They were cold rivals sharing a garage drenched in resentment. What was supposed to be Ferrari's glorious resurrection was becoming an opera of dysfunction. Hamilton wasn't just driving against Verstappen or Norris or Russell. He was now battling doubt, bureaucracy, and ghosts of his past decisions. And as the media frenzy intensified, the question echoed across every corner of the Formula One world. How much more was Lewis Hamilton willing to tolerate before the red suit became just another cage? And though he offered no comment, no post, no interview, one thing had become crystal clear to those who watched closely: Lewis wasn't broken. He was calculating. And when the storm calms, when the debris clears, and when everyone thinks he's finally caged, that's when he'll strike. Hamilton, a driver once celebrated for his ice-cold composure and clinical focus even in the most chaotic circumstances, reached a boiling point that not even he could suppress any longer. What unfolded on lap 30 wasn't just a crack in the armor. It was a full-blown eruption, years in the making. As an Alpine car, yes, a midfield Alpine, slipped past him like a hot knife through butter, Hamilton's voice burst onto the team radio with a rawness and intensity rarely heard from a seven-time world champion. Are you guys even watching this? Are your eyes on the screen? Because I just got passed by a car that has no business being anywhere near me. I feel like I'm parked out here while they're in another category. This kind of thing never used to happen at Mercedes. Not once. Not like this. I've never experienced this many problems, this many failures, this much dysfunction in one race with them. I don't even know what we're doing here anymore. What's the goal? What's the mission? Because right now, it feels like we're just going in circles, literally and figuratively. In the Ferrari garage, the mood shifted instantly. The tension was so thick you could almost see it. Mechanics froze mid-task. Engineers exchanged silent glances, eyes wide behind their visors. Nobody knew whether to speak or just listen. But then came the thunderclap. Hamilton, in a move that sent shockwaves through the paddock, asked to be connected directly to team principal Frederic Vasseur. Mid-race. No filter. No script. Just Hamilton, his frustrations boiling over, demanding accountability in the most public and high-pressure environment imaginable. Frederic, are you listening? I need you on this channel now, Hamilton said, his voice low, controlled, but trembling with emotion. I need you to understand something, directly from me. This power unit, this entire setup, it's not just underperforming, it's fundamentally flawed. We sat down. We had meetings. You looked me in the eye and told me we'd focus on dependability, that we'd be aggressive with updates, that this team had the hunger to return to the top. And now I'm out here in a car that doesn't even shift gears properly. The torque response is erratic. The energy systems are in chaos. It's like we're learning how to build an F1 car from scratch. Vasseur's voice eventually came through the static, audibly tense and far more cautious than usual. Lewis, we hear you. We are monitoring everything. Let's get through the race. We will analyze all the data and regroup afterward. Let's stay focused. But Hamilton had no interest in delay or diplomacy. His words came out in rapid-fire bursts, each sentence more explosive than the last. No, we talk now. We face this now, he insisted, cutting through the usual calm and control of F1 team communication like a razor. I've reached my limit. I've been patient, I've been loyal, But this has gone beyond mechanical issues. Every single race it's something new. One weekend it's the ERS acting up, the next it's the hybrid deployment going haywire. Then it's the clutch slipping, then the energy recovery not syncing with the throttle input. And now, I've got brake bias shifting on me mid-corner? That's not just frustrating, that's dangerous. It's unpredictable. You can't race like this, you can't fight for wins like this, and you damn sure can't build a championship on this kind of instability. I didn't join Ferrari to be a mascot. I came here to lead, to elevate this team, to build a legacy. But I can't carry all of this on my shoulders every Sunday. The radio line fell into silence. Not technical silence, but the kind of pause that screams louder than words. Back at the Ferrari pit wall, you could feel the shock settling in like dust after a detonation. Engineers stared at their monitors, but weren't really seeing anything. Mechanics stood motionless. It wasn't just Hamilton who'd been exposed in that moment. It was the entire organization, their shortcomings laid bare for the world to hear, live and unfiltered. Within minutes, social media exploded. Clips of the team radio went viral. Hashtag Hamilton outburst, hashtag Ferrari crisis, and hashtag Red Mist trended simultaneously across platforms. Pundits were left speechless. Former drivers, current rivals, and commentators scrambled to make sense of what they just witnessed. This wasn't just a radio message, it was a declaration, a line in the sand. The honeymoon phase was over. The patience had run out. The masks had come off. From the Sky Sports commentary box to the F1 TV feed, the tone changed. The narrative shifted in real time. What was supposed to be another ordinary Grand Prix became an inflection point, a symbolic moment where one of the sport's greatest ever drivers laid bare the dysfunction of one of its most storied teams. And the fans? They couldn't look away. Comments flooded in from every corner of the world. Some defended him. Some criticized him. But no one ignored him. Hamilton had commanded the world's attention, not with a pole lap or a daring overtake, but with honesty, a brutal, blistering, unforgiving honesty that nobody else on the grid dared to speak aloud. After the race, Hamilton didn't even take off his gloves before storming into the motorhome. He didn't wait for the press. He didn't wait for debrief. And even though the official Ferrari statement would later describe it as a passionate exchange, everyone knew the truth. Something irreversible had just happened. This wasn't just about engines or strategy calls. It was about trust. It was about belief. And for the first time in his career, Lewis Hamilton sounded like a man who wasn't just frustrated, he sounded like a man betrayed. And in Formula One, betrayal echoes louder than any engine ever could. When the checkered flag waved and the chaos of race day started to settle, Lewis Hamilton didn't immediately exit his car. He sat there, still strapped into the cockpit, unmoving, his gloves resting on the wheel like they weighed 100 pounds. His eyes didn't scan the crowd or the track, they stared blankly into nothing. P11. Outside the points. Another race lost to mechanical dysfunction and broken promises. His body was still, but his thoughts roared louder than any engine ever had. In that moment, the roar of the world around him faded into a suffocating silence that felt more deafening than victory cheers. The team didn't swarm him with cheers or sympathy. No one ran over with a water bottle, no strategist extended a hand. The mechanics glanced his way and then immediately looked down at their feet. There was no joy, no consolation. Just a palpable discomfort that hung in the air like a fog of disappointment. The only sound was the quiet hiss of the cooling system and the crackle of radio chatter. None of it meant for him. He slowly removed his helmet, sweat clinging to his temples, his jaw locked tight. His gaze found Fred Vasseur in the garage. It wasn't a look of anger, it was far worse. It was a look of betrayal, as if a sacred trust had been shattered. Hamilton didn't shout. He didn't gesture. He spoke just 5 words, quietly, firmly, with every ounce of gravity his legacy carried. "Get me Toto. Now. Please." Those words weren't spoken out of desperation. They were forged in a fire of disappointment, shaped by months of tension, and delivered like a verdict. And in a twist nobody expected, Ferrari's silence became Mercedes' opportunity. Within minutes, Lewis had slipped into a private room behind the Ferrari motorhome. Security sealed the area. Team staff were ushered away. The door clicked shut. Hamilton pulled out a secured comms device, encrypted, high-level clearance, used only for moments that truly mattered. On the other end, Back in the control center of Mercedes HQ, a familiar voice answered without hesitation. Lewis. It was Toto Wolff. The two men hadn't spoken in weeks. Not like this. Not heart to heart. The call wasn't scheduled. It wasn't diplomatic. It was raw, direct, and personal. Hamilton's voice trembled, not with fear but with contained rage. Not the kind that lashes out, but the kind that simmers beneath years of loyalty gone unrewarded. Toto, Lewis began, swallowing hard, this is not what I signed up for. I've never felt this kind of helplessness. Not in all the years with you. I've had tough races. I've lost titles. But I've never felt invisible. He paused, collecting himself. There was emotion in his throat, restrained but undeniable. I gave them everything, he continued. My name. My image. My legacy. I believed in this project, in their vision. And what do I get? A car that doesn't talk back. A machine that ignores me. I press the throttle and it laughs in my face. I'm not racing, I'm surviving. I'm dragging a corpse across the track every weekend. On the other end, Toto didn't interrupt. He listened, head bowed, surrounded by data screens showing every painful detail of the race he just watched unfold. Then he spoke, his voice measured, but saturated with something deeper, something personal. I saw everything, Lewis. Every corner. Every sector. That wasn't racing, it was punishment. And it wasn't your fault. It's never been about your talent. It's about being let down by a system that promised support and delivered silence. You were the core of what we built. And seeing you like this, it's not right. You were never just another driver to us. You were the soul. Hamilton exhaled sharply, gripping the phone tighter. I miss it, Toto. I miss knowing that the machine would listen. I miss a team that didn't need to be reminded who I was. With you, I felt understood. Here, I feel disposable. There was a pause, heavy telling. On both ends, unspoken thoughts collided with hard truths. Somewhere in the quiet static of that line, something shifted. Maybe it wasn't a formal offer. Maybe there was no concrete decision. But something had been set in motion, a seed planted beneath a canopy of broken dreams and technical failures. A question hung in the air, too dangerous to ask aloud. Could he come back? The night wore on, but the drama wasn't over. Back outside, Charles Leclerc, teammate, rival, hopeful successor, approached Hamilton cautiously near the Ferrari hospitality suite. He wasn't smiling. He wasn't defensive. He looked like a man stepping into a minefield. Lewis, Charles began carefully, I didn't mean for the radio to come across like that. I was surprised by how tough it looked out there. Hamilton's eyes narrowed. The friendly tone didn't disarm him, it sharpened his fury. Surprised. Lewis echoed. You sounded like a commentator, not a teammate. You broadcast to the whole world that I was struggling, as if I wasn't already being humiliated out there. Charles tried to explain, hands open in a gesture of peace. I didn't mean it like that. I was being honest. You looked like you were fighting the car every lap. I wasn't attacking you, I was reacting. Lewis stepped forward, inches away now, his voice low but cutting. You think I don't know I was struggling? You think I needed you to announce it mid-race? While I'm wrestling a beast that doesn't obey me. That's not honesty, Charles. That's betrayal in front of millions. Leclerc's jaw tightened. His patience frayed. I didn't betray anyone. I spoke the truth. Maybe if this team had more truth, we wouldn't be falling apart. And then, silence. An invisible barrier between them. No shouting. No blows. Just the cold realization that the dream they both signed up for was burning around them, and neither of them could save it. Lewis turned his back without another word and walked away, footsteps echoing in the empty corridor. And as Leclerc stood there, alone under the fluorescent lights of a garage once meant for greatness, the weight of it all became undeniable. Some say the encrypted call was just the beginning. That Mercedes didn't hang up the phone, they pulled up documents. That a quiet storm is building behind the scenes. That Hamilton's loyalty to Ferrari, already fractured, might be slipping through the cracks of yet another failed promise. Because when a 7-time world champion reaches out to the man who once built empires around him, the entire paddock feels the aftershocks. And when Lewis Hamilton mutters, "Get me Toto," with the world still watching, something seismic is about to break. Hamilton didn't wait for the sentence to end. His stare sliced through the air like a blade forged in fury. His voice, sharpened with years of experience and betrayal, struck with precision. There's a distinction between truth and exploitation. You calculated every syllable. If this organization intends to progress, we need solidarity, not sabotage. No one moved. No one breathed. The atmosphere inside Ferrari's post-race meeting room wasn't just heavy, it was suffocating. Engineers glanced at each other with expressions that screamed confusion, doubt, and fear. Their screens displayed numbers and graphs, but no metric could quantify what had just unraveled. The silence wasn't calm, it was crushing. Mechanics stood frozen, tools in hand, unsure if they were meant to fix a machine or a relationship. The PR staffers huddled in doorways, exchanging hushed conversations about damage control, hoping the volcano wouldn't erupt further. This wasn't a debrief. It was a war zone in slow motion. The fire alarm hadn't been pulled, but the building was burning, from the inside out. Hamilton stormed out. No handshake. No smile. No glance backward. The paddock's artificial lights bounced off his visor, but nothing could penetrate the storm brewing behind those eyes. He bypassed the media zone entirely. Reporters shouted questions. He heard every word, but none deserved a response. Silence spoke louder than 1,000 press releases. And yet, the world heard everything. Within minutes, the F1 sphere ignited. Messages poured into journalist inboxes. Twitter threads exploded. Reddit lit up with theories. Was this it? Was this the beginning of an implosion? Had the red fairy tale disintegrated into an irreversible tragedy? Whispers turned to seismic shockwaves. Anonymous sources, voices from deep within the paddock, revealed what few dared admit aloud. Hamilton's management team had discreetly secured a confidential appointment with key Mercedes personnel scheduled for the Austrian Grand Prix weekend. It wasn't speculation. It was movement. Strategic. Quiet. But undeniably real. Some insiders insisted he was merely keeping options open. Others were convinced he was done with Maranello's chaos. He craved one final championship, a last crown, and he'd follow it into fire if necessary. Sentiment would not stand in the way of ambition. Nostalgia was a luxury. Victory was a necessity. What's undeniable? The hunger hasn't faded. The obsession still roars beneath his calm exterior. The flame isn't flickering. It's roaring like a furnace fueled by injustice and frustration. Barcelona didn't merely represent another failed Sunday. It exposed the fracture. Not in performance, but in principle. Not in aerodynamics, but in allegiance. The power unit failure was more than mechanical. It was metaphorical. It collapsed not only the race strategy, but the foundational trust Hamilton had placed in Ferrari. Trust that he could transform legacy into legend. Trust that the red suit would someday hang beside his greatest triumphs. Trust that he could carve out a permanent place in the pantheon of Maranello gods. That trust didn't burn, it shattered. And that kind of break isn't repaired with software patches or upgraded components. It requires rebuilding from the soul outward. But is there time for that? From the moment he first stepped into the Scuderia garage, Hamilton envisioned a masterpiece. He wasn't there to win races. He was there to etch immortality. To transcend the noise and become part of a lineage defined not by pace alone, but by mythology. Fangio. Lauda. Schumacher. Hamilton. But now, that dream is dissolving like smoke in the wind. No victory lap. No champagne. Just ash. Because beneath the red paint lies politics. Layers of it. Conflicting agendas. Power struggles masquerading as strategy meetings. Promises offered in daylight and rescinded by dusk. The smile in the briefing room doesn't match the vote in the boardroom. And Hamilton, experienced, strategic, brutally intelligent, can sense when he's being positioned. The pats on the back. The empty assurances. The subtle implication that the fault lies with him, not the system. He's been here before. He knows the taste of betrayal. He recognizes the scent of agendas cloaked in civility. He's not naive. He's not emotional. He's calculating every move like a grandmaster 10 moves ahead. He's not throwing in the towel. He's choosing which ring to fight in next. Back-channel negotiations are already underway. Agencies are coordinating. Legal teams are combing through escape clauses, precedents, and exit strategies. Across Europe, phones buzz in private rooms where only first names are spoken. Everyone knows, when Hamilton falls silent, something massive is approaching. And it's never subtle. Will it be Brackley again? A reunion steeped in unfinished business? Could it be a shock leap, something wild, unthinkable, poetic? Audi? Aston Martin? Red Bull? The board is wide open. But wherever he goes, one truth remains. Hamilton isn't chasing nostalgia, he's hunting legacy. And this story? It's far from over. Because Lewis Hamilton doesn't walk away from chaos. He bends it. He molds it. He uses it as fuel. You don't write him off. You don't count him out. He's not the past. He's the disruptor of the present and the architect of the future. And somewhere, out of sight, the next chapter is being written. The ink isn't dry. The pen is still moving. And when the curtain rises again, it won't just be another race. It'll be vengeance. Wrapped in silence. Fueled by rage. And dressed perhaps not in red, but in silver once more. Or something even more shocking. Because history doesn't follow rules. Hamilton rewrites them.